Hello, everyone. Welcome to Logicast, the Logical Gamers podcast. I'm Esoteric, and I'm here with Gunna Eos and Wolf. Unfortunately, Blanca Khan couldn't make it tonight, but we have we have our people here, and tonight we are going to discuss this article that I came across, and it's titled "I'd Probably Like Quit." Former Dragon Age lead reacts to EA's suggestion the Veilguard should have been live service. And then there's a quote underneath it that says, "Who'd be silly enough to demand something like that?" All right, so the news was written by Tom Phillips, editor in chief, and it was published today at the time of this recording, February 6th, 2025. All right, so let's get into the article here. Former Dragon Age lead developers have reacted to the suggestion by publisher EA that the series' most recent entry would have sold better as a live service game. This week, EA boss Andrew Wilson said players increasingly seek shared world features and deeper engagement, while the company's chief financial officer bluntly claimed that Dragon Age The Veilguard underperformed, icing the competitive dynamics of the single player RPG market. The remarks raised eyebrows among fans, not least because Dragon Age The Veilguard previously pivoted to being a live service game midway through its development, only for EA to see sense and revert it back after BioWare's actual live service effort Anthem was a flop. Alright, continuing on here. Look, I'm not a fancy CEO guy, former Dragon Age creative director Mike Laidlaw wrote on social media. But if someone said to me the key to successful single player IP's success is to make it purely a multiplayer game, no, not a spin off, fundamentally change the DNA of what people loved about the core game to me, I'd probably like quit that job or something. Laidlaw worked on the Dragon Age series from its creation and was set to serve as director on what became Dragon Age The Veilguard up until its live service plot. It was at this point that Laidlaw did indeed quit BioWare after more than 15 years to go elsewhere. Just thinking out loud, of course, Laidlaw continued, who would be silly enough to demand something like that? Twice. Fellow BioWare veteran David Gator also chipped in, offering his perspective after having served as a lead writer on the series up until the Veilguard. If I really dig into my empathy, I can kind of see the thinking here, Gator wrote on social media. Like, let's say you don't actually know much about games. You're in a big office, with a bunch of other execs who also don't know much about games. What are they all saying? Live games do big numbers. Action games are hot. My advice to EA, not that they care, you have an IP that a lot of people love. Deeply at its height, it sold well enough to make you happy, right? Look at what it did best at the point where it sold most. Fellow Baldur's Gate 3 studio, Larian's lead and double down on that. The audience is still there and waking. I said waking, waiting. Laidlaw wound up founding his own indie studio and just released the single player RPG Eternal Strands. It launched this month on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S, including via Game Pass if you fancy a new role player that's not a live service now. Alright, so that is the end of the article. What are your thoughts about this, gentleman?
So I mean, the man's not wrong. I think a lot of the modern gaming industry and a lot of modern gamers have been sold kind of a lie in that in order for games to be successful, they have to be live services, and definitely a lot of these suits, which are at the sitting at the table in the board of directors, and a lot of these big AAA Western and some Eastern companies think that live service is the only way to go. I think the reason why that is because they see the numbers that some of these Eastern, whether they're Japanese, Korean, or Chinese games pull. I'm talking about like your Hoyoverse games, your Genshin Impacts, your Marvel Rivals. games like that are live services, and they're just fucking printing money. I'm talking about billions every quarter. So a lot of
Yeah.
these studios like EA, they see that and they see these studios making that kind of ludicrous money, which I will admit that shit is ludicrous money. We were talking about like back then, selling a million copies was considered a worldwide success.
Hmm.
Nowadays, selling a million is not break even. That's a failure. I remember the Tomb Raider reboot, sold a million copies, and Square Enix called it um, basically a failure. They use nicer words, but they basically called it a failure.
Yeah.
Now that's like now it is a failure. If your game only sells a million with the the huge bloat some of these game projects have in terms of their budget, yeah, that is a failure. So a lot of these suits they don't see single player RPG experiences or single player games in general as a success because they want to chase that live service dragon. They want to make that money, so everything has to be a live service game, and that doesn't work for everything. Dragon Age, especially games like Dragon Age, it's an established IP. People love Origins. People are mixed about um, Inquisition, but for the most part, people like Dragon Age. Dragon Age has a long time fan base, and a lot of people were looking forward to Veilguard, and they were a lot of core fans were very, very disappointed with Veilguard. Now, Veilguard failed for a lot of reasons. I know you might hear things on the internet about wokeness and whatnot, but it failed for a lot of reasons. And a lot of reasons is because of its bad writing and very mediocre, very bare bones, basic combat. And I think the reason the combat was very basic is because this game originally was conceived as a live service game, which are meant to be kind of pick up and play games, very easy to get into, appeal to a wide audience, a wide swath of people, and so that's why the gameplay is what it is. And when they backtracked from their live service plan to make it a single player game, they couldn't just scrap the entire game and start over. So it still has that kind of live service skeleton,
Mm,
and
okay.
they tried to build a single player experience flesh on top of the skeleton, and it didn't work. It didn't work. So Veilguard failed for a lot of reasons, but it just being a very mediocre game, if you want to be charitable, is probably one of them. And the terrible fucking writing. That game had abysmal writing. And not no for anybody in the audience, not solely because it's woke. We can make an argument about that. But even if it wasn't, the writing was just like kindergarten level, my first paper in elementary school writing. It was that bad. So, but yeah, anyway, TLDR, live service makes a ton of money. You know, some guy at EA is looking at what Hoyoverse is doing, and they're like, I want to make that money. Give me a game that makes me that money. What IPs do we have that make it? And unfortunately, Dragon Age, yeah, was the unlucky bastard that got picked. And don't be surprised if you don't see another Dragon Age, if at all, or for a very long time.
Oof. All right. What say you, Wolf? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it definitely did suffer from the greed or the anticipation of success being a live service game because mobile games blew up. They're they are live service games. I consider them live service game. Um, and then on top of that, it excuse me, sorry. It so sorry.
Ooh, that's
Um, I apologize for that.
Oh
It
man, you're allergic to this article, huh?
it shows that it takes more than just a popular franchise or a successful name to make a successful live service game. And live service games tend to suffer the flavor of the month kind of style, where yeah, like right now it's big because it's new and Everybody wants to jump on it because they're always trying out the new live service game. It's free. They can download it. They can get into it with no charge for the most part. Um, but then after that, they go, and then move on. That happens a lot with live service games, I see. Um, with a few exceptions, like I think Marvel Rivals is doing good right now, but eventually it will go on a decline, and eventually they're gonna shut it down. T At least that's how I feel. That's what I think, anyways. As far as like Dragon Age, I like the first two Dragon Age games, and they were not live service games. They were actual RPGs that I can play and enjoy in my own comfort, personal time. And I was not. I knew about it, but I was never interested in finding out like how we all can play. Because you guys know that I'm always looking for like multiplayer games for us to play,
Yeah, yeah.
and I just was not interested in it at all. Not. I was like, man, it wasn't interesting to me. So it's no surprise that, especially if you're someone like the gentleman who was talking, was saying that EA didn't listen. Yeah, they didn't listen, and I guess based on the article, he foresaw that this game was going on a downhill path, and it sounded like he tried to give them fair warning, and they just wouldn't listen because they're chasing pennies, or they're chasing the dollar. But ultimately, it just becomes a disservice to the fans because those who did play the game and enjoyed the game, it it sucks to have to wake up in the morning and then you load the game up and you get that dreaded message. Thank you for your, well, thank you for playing message. That's usually what it says at the top.
Yeah.
Thank you for playing, and this game is shutting down at such and such time, or this game will be shut down, and pretty much you can't do anything in the game left. No one really wants to wake up to that, especially if they're investing their time and energy and money and attention towards it. And if they didn't chase the life service style, I think they probably could have made a really good, just a straight up multiplayer Dragon Age game, or just a Dragon Age game. You make your character, you go on this adventure with choices and repercussions and all this other stuff, with your magic and your fantasy, and just let people enjoy Dragon Age the way that Dragon Age was originally designed to be enjoyed as. I think they really kind of like dropped the ball on this one.
No, big time, big time.
Hmm.
Gotcha. That definitely makes a lot of sense. So I have heard about Dragon Age. Like I've never played it. I recently acquired it in the later years, and I've heard nothing but good things about the original one, and I heard mixed things about Inquisition. So I've acquired both because overall, from what I've been told, they're outstanding good games. So I was actually interested in picking up the Veilguard. Um, but I haven't done so because, as you guys already know, I like to play games in order. Despite whether the story is continuous or not, I just like to play things from the first one to the last one, and so on and so forth. Probably because there could be some mechanical changes, some quality of life changes that might be upgraded into the newer one that would kind of annoy me if I were to go back. Um, that could be a possible reason or whatnot. But I did hear nothing but good things about those two games. So I was expecting it to be this game to be even better because this game, from what I recall, has been in development for quite some time, and fans have been looking like they were super eager for it to be released. Um, Now, what I didn't know was that it was going to initially be a live service game, and the issue that I have with live service games is that for the most part they aren't built to last. There are some that has been around for quite some time, but eventually they have an expiration date, right? And then another thing too is when it comes to sequels of games, what gravitates the masses who've already played the game to the sequel is not only because of the title, because of the name, but also because of the gameplay that it provides. So if it becomes something drastic from what it initially was, people are going to deter from it. You know, let's give us some examples. You had the original Super Mario on the NES, and then you had Super Mario 2, which was kind of like somewhat vastly different, which they've taken the gameplay from another game. I forgot what it was called, but they pretty much did that and plugged in Super Mario characters. Um, and then let's say another one was The Adventures of Link. So you had the original Zelda, which was a isometric view, kind of like overhead kind of style, and you're going through different segments and things like that. But then with the Adventures of Link, they incorporated some side scrolling for the combat, and then like they had some RPG elements where you would encounter enemies, and then it kind of shifts into that side scroller. So a lot of people weren't too accepting of that because what they were accustomed to via the prequels, they didn't necessarily get during the sequels. So that's another thing. So for them to take a game like Dragon Age, besides all the other reasons as to why it didn't do well, i.e., the gameplay, the story bites, etc., etc., for them to take a game like this where people know and love the combat, know and love the way the game plays, the mechanics and whatnot, and not expound on them, but instead turn around and attempt to make it a live service, that is really, really, really weird. Um, you know, Weird from a perspective of like gamers are going to be annoyed about it and be like, why would you do that? But from the corpo's perspective, it's like, well, live services have a tendency to produce residual income. There's always constant updates when it comes to live services, whether it's skins, whether it's additional DLC such as new bosses that you get to fight, new lands, new story arcs, etc. So they can utilize this game being in a live service by giving you or spoon feeding you extra content in bits and pieces, um, which is it's mind boggling, Um, and another thing too is that with Dragon Age: The Veilguard is that you can't. I believe Gunnar touched based on it. You can't just abruptly change what a game was initially supposed to be midway and then shift it into something else because you're losing on a lot of development time, a lot of things, a lot of assets that they invested in, and chances are to kind of cut corners and kind of salvage what they've done prior, they're going to take some of those assets and kind of recycle them in a way that it will kind of fit into the new style of the game. And there are instances where that absolutely does work, but it's seldom. It's very rare for that idea to work. You know what I'm saying? So that's another thing I would assume that kind of caused them to do bad in terms of sales.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, so just
yeah,
like to address when you said it, they couldn't reverse or change course. I mean, they could. I mean, a prime example of that is Metroid Prime 4. Nintendo straight up told everybody, "Hey, look, we did not like the way the original Metroid Prime 4 was shaping up.
Mm-hmm.
We
hmm
decided to start over. Like we were
Mm-hmm.
supposed to have like played Metroid Prime 4 3 times over by now, but more than likely it's coming out with the inevitable Switch 2 at this point, which I'm fine with that because that means maybe the original would have been okay or good, but if Nintendo doesn't like it and they want, hey, look, who am I to say fuck you? It's fine. Release the game, right?
yeah.
So it can happen. The problem and the reason why it usually doesn't happen
It's the
is
money.
because it's the budget.
Yeah,
These games just have such enormous budget. I don't know the exact number for Veilguard in specifically, but I know it was over 100 million.
yeah.
And this game took 10 years to develop, which seems to be the weird standard for a lot of these AAA games now. You want a game, you got to wait a decade.
Yeah.
So it's hard for them to just scrap. Let's say they scrapped Veilguard and went for a new version of Veilguard, and it wasn't live service, never had any of that in its DNA. I mean, I don't think the game would ever come out because the amount of money they spent on what was going to be and then what we got, and then to scrap that and develop an entirely new game. Like we're talking about the GDP of certain countries at this point,
Yeah.
and I don't think a billion. I don't think 10 million copies could have saved the game if they did that. So, I mean, it's something. Pretty much, it's easier said than done in a lot of cases, and I think they should have tried with Dragon Age because again, it's one of EA's top franchises, and EA is losing franchise. Let's be real. I mean, Dead Space. Apparently, the remake wasn't good enough, so we're not going to see any more Dead
What?
Space. According to EA, it did not perform to their expectations. I don't know what that means, but I hope you weren't looking forward to Dead Space 2 remake or a Dead Space 4, because it ain't happening
I
probably.
mean, I absolutely was looking forward to sequels being remakes because again, much like Dragon Age, I came into the Dead Space series late. You guys watched me stream the first one, and it was phenomenal. And then for them to have a remake of it, I heard nothing but good things about it too. I purchased it as well. Like I got a lot of games in my library that I need to just like play and finish. But yeah, it was a great game. I mean, what is the margin in which that they developed the game, and what is the expectations? Like, what are the numbers looking like? Because
I mean, I don't know the numbers. Our resident number guy is not here today, but
yeah,
um, I just think it's if I'm gonna use a layman's explanation for it, is they wanted Dead Space to make all the money, and it didn't make all the money. There is no such thing as double A video games when it comes to mainstream anymore. These budgets are so astronomical that a game has to be um, more than a smash hit. It has to be, I don't know. Everybody and their mother and grandmother has to buy three copies of
Mhm.
this game, and like games just don't. Games are running $70 now, and if we believe fucking Grand Theft Auto, they want to get $100 out of us. So
Mhm.
like people, this at the end of the day, this is a hobby. This is a pastime.
yeah,
People will prioritize their children, their family, their household before getting the latest game. So if your game does not deliver, people are going to stop giving you their hard-earned money. And we're seeing that more and more, and Veilguard suffered for that. They, through various reasons, Veilguard did not sell because people were just not interested. And like, I'm not interested in giving you $70. So,
yeah.
by
Yeah.
the time you eventually get to it, Esoteric, you probably could get it at a steal. You'll probably get it for like $20 by the time you
Oh,
get around to it. I mean,
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It depends. I may give it a fair shot, not too much. I mean, because okay, from what I've seen from the predecessors, from Inquisition and the first one to what I'm seeing now, like it doesn't compare. You know what I'm saying? Like this game is vastly inferior from what I'm seeing. And this is from this is coming from somebody who hasn't played any of them, only saw like gameplay and whatnot. And from what I saw is that the first one in Inquisition is doing way better than this one. And I mean, don't take my word for it. The masses are complaining about it too. And if it was that great of a game, the numbers would meet
So, yeah.
the numbers would show. You know what I'm saying? So it's just really sad because it's like you wait a decade for a sequel, and then it's not to your expectation. It's kind of like going to a restaurant. You hear nothing. You've been there before. You've enjoyed the service, and then like you haven't been there in like years or so, and then you decide to go back again, right? And they come to find out that the quality of food that they're giving you is not what they had back when you first was introduced to it. You bought the same meal you probably asked for like extra ingredients or something to customize it to what you enjoyed, or they probably modified it to like make it more um you know pleasing to the palate or whatever, and then you eat it and it's like, what is this? This is like unrecognizable and whatnot. So that's pretty much what Dragon Age the Veilguard is. And it it's just sad. I feel bad for the diehard fans that was expecting something great, and the game unfortunately underperformed. Um, and then what else? We did have another article that kind of tied into it, um, but what did he say? What did Guider say? He said, if I really dig into my empathy, so he's like, I really have to like dig into
Yeah, he has
the
to be real nice.
into the depth of my soul to find a heart to give a damn about what's being said about this. It's like, if I really dig into my empathy, I can kind of see the thinking here on social media. Like, let's say you don't actually know much about games. You're in a big office with a bunch of other execs who also don't know much about games. What are they all saying? Live games do big numbers. Action games are hot. If you're an executive, I mean, at least take the time to understand what your consumers actually want. Stop look. I mean, it's easy. I guess it's easier said than done from their perspective because okay, numbers are high, we're doing well. Numbers are low, not so much. Like they're not looking at what it takes for these numbers to be where they are. You know what I'm saying? You got a game like this who, again, our numbers guy isn't here, but basically, in a nutshell, the development on this required a lot of money, right? And then it underperformed, but then you take a game like Power World, which numbers was nowhere near astronomical in terms of development that it took for Dragon Age, and they're killing it. It's like you guys don't have any analyzers who are looking at these things and comparing the two and like, well, this game underperformed, but this game is doing well, and it has less the processing power and the graphical aesthetics than this game. Like you guys are not going to kind of tie in the two and try to figure out what is the vast contrast between them. You know what I'm saying? They're not looking at stuff like that. Instead, they're going to pivot and say, well, the reason why it failed is because it wasn't a live service game. It's like, honestly, live service games are inevitable. Well, not from the perspective of the CEOs or whatever, because they're getting their money. But in my opinion, live service games are inevitable failures because once they're closed down, you can never play them again. You know what I'm saying? You can only live in that moment. So it's like it's just crazy how they just don't see. Like they put the blinders on and all they're fixated on are numbers. Or they don't let their developers do what they're great at, and that's make a great game. They're in the trenches. They know the lay of the land better than the guys that are seeing from the towers. They know exactly what's going on, and it's kind of ridiculous. But I kind of want to segue that to the next article that we have that's also a live service game. And it's titled Resident Evil Reverse Multiplayer Game Service Ends in June. And this was published also on February 6th, 2025. And I believe it was written by Jenny Lada or Lada. I hope I pronounced the last name correctly. But reading the article, it's a short one. Capcom announced that it will shut down the multiplayer game Resident Evil Reverse, and that service for it ends on June 29th, 2025. On that day, it will also stop including the game with copies of Resident Evil Village. Now, mind you, I purchased Resident Evil Village, and when I purchased it at launch, when it came out, I attempted to boot up Reverse, and Reverse wasn't even playable. So imagine that. You got two games in one, and you couldn't even play the other game because it wasn't playable at all. So I just want to keep that in mind, right? It originally appeared as a pack-in with the title. As servers will be closed, the game will be unplayable after that date, even though it would be possible to still download it. If it's unplayable, why are we still downloading it? What what sense does that make? I don't get it. Whatever. It's not like it's um what was it? PE, where it was a demo and they decided to discontinue making the game, and people say like PE is like one of the best experiences they ever had in a horror game, so they kept it on their consoles. No, it's like, oh, the game isn't playable, but we're gonna put it on a shelf for you to, look at or whatever, the virtual shelf. It makes no damn sense. Um, while Resident Evil Reverse service ends in about 4 months, Capcom hasn't cut off DLC sales yet.
Wow.
Funny how
So
they forget to do that.
the
They didn't
game
forget.
is the game is ending, and yet they still expect you to spend money.
Hey, you
Of
got till
course,
June.
Wolf. You want Redfield in his cool ass jacket up until June. You're gonna pay for it, and you're gonna look cool, and you're gonna enjoy this limited experience that's going to expire in June. Like, that's what it's going to be, because people are still going to want to buy this stuff, right?
Yeah, they're still gonna want to buy it.
Like you want Jill in her RE3 outfit, you can buy it. That's a great digital outfit. She looks great in it, so you want to look cool with those guns playing in multiplayer with it, right? So we're
Till
gonna
June.
still leave that open for you till June. Oh man, it's like expired NFTs. Like, oh my goodness. Um,
I mean, it's rough. I have a special dislike for this game because I have no factual proof. This is just my gut feeling. But
uh,
this was developed alongside the Resident Evil 3 remake that came out during the dark days of lockdowns and whatnot.
uh-huh.
And I feel that this kind of played a reason as to why the 3 remake did not perform as well as the RE2 remake and then the inevitable RE4 remake, because those two are great.
Mm-hmm.
They're they're what I think a remake should be. They don't mean to dismiss the original work, but they are their own separate entity that pays homage to the original. So you could play the original 2 and the remake 2 and get very different experiences and play two different games even though they're functionally the same game. But
Yeah.
3 remake just felt very like it just kind of felt like when you were in school and the project is due today and you write something down during breakfast so you can show up with something so you don't outright fail. Like that's what it felt like. It was very rushed. It didn't feel good. Now, to be fair, to be creditable, um, I'm gonna say that COVID and lockdowns did have something to do with that because people had to work from home and okay, sure, but you didn't need to develop a live service during that time. You could have developed a single player game. So to see REverse go the way of the dinosaur, I have no real sympathy. I mean, it sounds good on paper, but Resident Evil you would think would translate to a live service game pretty well, but it never does. This isn't the first time they tried. I mean, before live service games, you had um
Orc.
uh
Operation Raccoon City.
you had Operate, and then there was another one. It was Umbrella Corps. You had Umbrella Corps.
Okay.
Now that was before the live service boom, so it was just a multiplayer game. But even that didn't do well. So I don't know. Resident Evil seems to have a hard time kind of branching into the multiplayer world. I think they need to bring back a updated version or a brand new version of the Survivor series, the Resident Evil Survivor series,
Okay.
because I think that was a great multiplayer game. It just came out before it came out too soon, before multiplayer was an established thing. But
Okay.
yeah, again, another prime example of a live service game that is going to disappear. This game will not have an offline mode, which they could easily do, which could at least preserve the game in some way so you can play it and maybe you can have like local servers or
Hmm.
co-op servers or just play solo with bots. Something to keep the game alive so the poor bastard who was playing this game and spent money on skins can at least fucking continue to play it, because once this is gone in June, that's all gone. Your money's going with Capcom. Thanks for funding Wilds, I guess. Um,
Hmm.
But yeah,
but
that's why I call these types of games inevitable failures from the perspective of the consumer, because it accomplished the mission for, the producers, like the CEOs, the corpos. It accomplished its mission because of the simple fact that it's gathering a lump sum of money before its end date. Like, if you play a live service game, you have to understand and expect that it's going to expire eventually. It could be 2 years, it could be 2 months. Hell, it might even, if it's really bad, it might be 2 days. Then it's just like a inevitable failure across the board. But that's pretty much how these games go. Like, I'll continue with the article. It says the um, that will happen on March 3rd, 2025, the cutoff of the DLC. Then it goes on to say the premium pass will leave the shop that day. So there's even a premium pass. That means that, I guess, you're able to acquire all the skins within a lump sum, or if you got the premium pass early, um, you probably, each time they release the skin, you probably acquired it or whatnot. Uh,
what's a fancy word for a battle pass?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, yeah. So it goes on again. It says, so will the RP boost, 3, 10, and 50 packs. It will stop selling eight costumes for Ada Wong, Chris Redfield, Claire Redfield, Jill Valentine, Leon S. Kennedy, Hunt, and both the Hunter and Super Tyrant skins. And then it goes on to provide a list of skins that will be gone forever after March 3rd, 2025. But it's like, yeah, they'll be gone forever after March, but then after June, they'll technically be gone forever anyway.
For everyone, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I'm paying for this now so then I can prolong it later. It doesn't make any sense. And then they just give a list of like the different skins that were that was that came out or whatever. And it says we were originally supposed to first see Resident Evil Reverse in July 2021. It ended up delayed into 2022. The Resident Evil Village multiplayer bonus game finally ended up launching in October of 2022. So mind
Oh,
you,
that's right. Yeah.
yeah, so that's what I said earlier, right? Like, I purchased RE Village during launch, and then when I booted up Reverse, it wasn't playable. And then I periodically checked to see if it was playable or whatnot, to the point where I just forgot about it. And then once you drop this article in our chat, I was like, oh wow, okay, I completely forgot about this game. So yeah.
Same. But yeah, that's the nature of the beast, man. I mean, it's, we know about it from gotcha games. It happens
Hmm.
way too frequently. You're lucky if your gotcha game lasts a year. If it lasts if you see that 1 year anniversary, it's considered an old man at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So like, me and Wolf are used to that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's the same mentality, and it sucks because once these games disappear, was Reverse probably a mediocre Resident Evil multiplayer game? Yeah, probably, but it's still a game, right? It will disappear forever, and people will not have the opportunity to play it anymore, and that sucks.
Yeah, and then here's another thing as well, right? We did touch on a couple of episodes ago about, preservationists and having to go back and pretty much play games that were developed back in the days to kind of write reports and do like studies on them or whatnot. Like, how do you do that with these particular games? Because they are a part of history. Like, what if you wanted to make a comparison of a new live service game that
That's a
RE will come
personal
out?
problem.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
That's a right. That's a personal problem. The gaming company is not in it for you for them to say, hey, 20 years later you can become a historian on our video game per
Yeah.
se. Right now, they're thinking about, well, they want the money, they need the cash grab, and the cash grab is the live service style. The kind of game that you pick up, you play it, you get in it. It's consumers, at least they go with the idea that most live service games, again, you can download for free, and you get the game and all that other stuff. That's the selling point.
Hmm.
But your little microtransactions, they get you with, or the just the overall build of the game or how the game is built. Like, I've played live service games that is just straight up aesthetics, but people love their characters being a certain way or having certain things, and so they end up spending the money. And then you have some that's like the gotcha games, which again I consider live service games,
Yeah.
are like the gotcha games will, they'll harp on that weakness of wanting the next best unit, if you're that kind of player, or if you're the kind of player that likes the unit or wants the unit because of how he or she looks. um that's another thing too. So it's really a harp on our, I guess, it's a attack on our weakness, that okay, these people like these styles, and we're just going to use that against them, make our money, and when the game ends, the game ends, period.
Yeah.
I i, I don't think they are considering the whole idea of, well, what's going to happen. People are going to want to view our game 10 years, 20 years later. It's about the money now.
Oh yeah, they're absolutely not doing that, right? They're definitely not. I'm just thinking from, their perspectives, who would absolutely want to take a look at a game like this and make comparisons for the current games that are coming out when they do happen to do that. And like, I can't completely shun like live service games or whatnot, because there are some games that I have played that have live service attributes. Like, for example, you have Final Fantasy 14, which is an MMO. Eventually that game will sunset, but what they did do was they did provide a ton a ton of content for you to enjoy. You know
But
what I'm
that's a
saying?
that's an issue with our new live service games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our new live service games, it's for me, it's the content.
Yeah.
So, what Final Fantasy is an MMO, which eventually, the services will stop, I guess. But the game is loaded with content. it's
Yeah.
it's always something to do. It's always something you can grind on. And if the gacha game is even done correctly, there's always something to do, even when it doesn't seem like it. There's plenty of times where because I play Honkai Star Rail, and there's a lot of times where I will load it up and I don't feel like I have to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like there isn't anything to do in the game, but when I step back and I look at exactly how the game is supposed to be played, or what is the expectation of the game to be played, there's a lot to do. A lot.
Yeah, I mean they're supposed to be.
Hmm.
I believe that those
Content
games,
filled, yeah.
yeah, they're supposed to be both bolstered with a lot of content, because they know that they want to attract as much of an audience as they can. They want to keep them engaged, keep them enthralled, and the only way to do that is to give them enough content for them to do, in order for them to have the incentive to play the game. I mean that's just the lay of the land when it comes to live service games. Like they're gonna have an inevitable end, and it just sucks. Personally, I feel like they can put some contingencies in place. Like, okay, if they know that it's going to expire at a certain point, there should be certain things. Like, for example, when I was playing Dissidia Opera Omnia, I feel like they could have, whatever I accomplished within that game, I should be able to revisit. And like, so all the missions that I've done, like all the units that I've acquired, all the pulls that I've gotten, I should be able to utilize those things to replay missions that I've already done. Or they give you a certain cutoff mission where it's like, okay, at this point, this is where the final mission ends, and whoever did not beat this boss beyond this point will not get the other, like kind of like segments. You know what I'm saying? So you've done chapters 1 through 5. If you didn't complete 6, then you can't get 7, and so on. At least to allow me to be able to take a look at my units, take a look at the builds I made, uh, you know,
Mm-hmm.
refight summons, like just to have some sort of replay value, because the content is still there, and it's like, well, what is preventing them from turning it from a live service game to like an actual full-fledged RPG, you know?
Well, I know like there are some live service games that did, or gacha games that did that. Like the Mega Man gacha game did that. You can buy it. I think it's for like $15 or something like that.
Okay.
Um, I could be wrong, but I do believe it's $15, and you can buy it and still play the game. You just don't have access to pulling the characters you want to pull.
Mm.
But um, it's for me. I think it's more so for them the idea of ouch, the idea of cash grabbing. They just want to get the money, milk it as much as they can, and once it's done, or once they feel like they gotten their worth, then boom, let's just shut it down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's completely understandable. Cause here's what I'm thinking, right? Let's say, again, going back to DFFOO, right? What I would have done, since we're no longer going to be utilizing this game, I would relinquish the aspect of paying for the I forgot what the currency is in that game, but the currency that allows you to pull, right?
Gems.
Oh yes, the gems, right? And
Hmm.
then from there, instead of making it where you have to pay to acquire these things, you could just pretty much grind in the game itself to get these gems and be able to unlock whatever existing characters is in the game. Because I don't see where they have to completely cut off the game to stop players from playing it. Like they can have everything that they've created accessible to the masses. Like all the skins, all the unlockable players, all the weapons that you have to grind for, and make that just one big RPG. You know what I'm saying? Like they could have done that and just relinquish the whole monetary transaction aspect, because if you're no longer servicing the game and you don't want to and you're going to end it, I would think that would be the best course of action in order to prolong what you guys have created, but that's just me. Maybe
Again,
there's something I'm not
that's.
looking at.
I feel like I don't know if it'll cost a lot of money to do that. I don't know if it'll cost a lot of resources. I don't know if it's licenses that they would have to continue to pay out to keep
Hmm.
certain things going.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's a little bit, a lot of, a little bit of all of those that go into something like that with your idea. But at the same time, is what I always say. It's almost something that I preach. They're not in it for
Yeah, I mean,
the better of the consumer.
yeah.
They're not in it of the in the better of the consumer. That's why gacha games are the way they are. You notice there's no limit on how much money you can spend to pull in a gacha game. Like there is no limit on how much you can spend in a live service game. If I uploaded if I turned on Marvel Rivals right now, I can spend as much money that I feel like I can spend out of my account to buy all the skins that's possible to be bought in the game. It's not like the game is going to say to me like, "Hey, you spent $15 already. Are you sure you want to continue?" It's not like a
Just
big
true.
message is going to come up and say, "Hey, think about your financial responsibilities." It's not, the games is not going to do that. Like they're not designed to do that. They're
Yeah.
designed to make money, and that's what they're supposed to, and that's what they're gonna do. So I'm thinking it's the idea of getting people of the company is probably not getting enough revenue back from the game, and then they just decide
Yeah.
to just
Okay.
let it go. Like, all right, let's take DFO DF Final Fantasy Dissidia.
Yeah.
Let's take that gotcha game as an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
It really wasn't pulling a lot of money. It wasn't. It wasn't pulling a lot of money like say Brave Exodus was. And that's because Brave Exodus is not as financial friendly as the Dissidia.
Yeah.
And a lot of the gacha games that ends up crashing really fast are the ones that are not so. It's one of two things. They're either A, overly cash hungry and people just tap out, or B, not the resources in the game cover enough for people to not have to spend a lot of money
Yeah.
and you still get your rewards.
Yeah.
So it's always the extremes on both ends. Whereas Hoyoverse, to me, Hoyoverse is they're scammers in their own logical way, but regardless, they found a good balance within their games, and that's why their games are real successful because you can spend as much money as you want in a Hoyoverse game, and you'll get your unit, or you can wait it out. You can play the game. You can do what you need to do, and you'll get enough resources to do one or two pulls. And sometimes for a lot of people, that's all. That's enough.
Yeah.
That is enough. Where they're like, okay, well, I did my one or two pulls because the game gives me enough resources to do so. It's like it's like giving a child a reward for doing good. You understand what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
like we will reward Hoyoverse money because they're like, okay, well, we'll you're allowed to play this game and make your pulls with this much resources, but you're not going to get the amount of resources that a person who's going to spend the money that's going to get. You're not. But you feel good enough, like, oh, with every new banner, they give you 10 free tickets as long as you log in the game for 7 days. It feels good when you're a player. It makes you feel like the game or the company really cares on you saving your money. So you use your 10 tickets, you make your 10 pull session. You don't get the unit, but you're like, I'll throw $20 in because that was the game gave me one free pull to my overall pity.
Yeah.
So I think they found like a nice balance on getting people to spend as much money as they want, but then also keeping the free to play players satisfied enough to say, yeah, I can keep going because I get enough resources to at least attempt to pull. Um, Dissidia was too much of that. It was too much. I can do this one mission and I'll get two, three, four free pulls because it just gave that much gems. It's a little bit exaggerated, but yes, there have been most of my Dissidia playtime. I've never really had to spend money like that. Never. And I'll get my weapons and build my units and all the other stuff just fine. Absolutely just fine. And then there was another one that I tried. Um, what was it called? It was called Shining Force or something with shining in its name.
Dragalia Lost. Oh no,
No,
never mind.
Jogalia Lost. Okay, let's use Jogalia Lost.
I mean, that was
Jogalia,
another. That's another one that fits your point.
yeah, and that was another one too, where it was Jogalia Lost started off fairly friendly, and then it just like plummeted. um, but and then there was one. It was called like Shining Force or something like that, where you would pull, but instead of getting the character, you get shards of the character.
Was
So
it
you
like
had
was it this? Because I pulled it up on my phone. I don't know if you could see it visibly, but it says
I
Shining
can't see it.
Force. Ah, okay. Uh,
I can't see it visibly, but it was like you when you pull, you get the shards of the characters. You don't get the actual character, and you
okay.
have to keep pulling and build towards unlocking the character with shards, and that was costly. the game wasn't going to survive because ultimately you have to spend the money. You literally have to spend money to get your characters. So that game shut down in just like what, a year and change?
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it prioritized the players spending money and not prioritize a balance between the players spending money and the players choosing to go with the resources that the game should provide to begin with. But live service games, the issue with live service games is that they feel, for me, live service games feel incomplete. They feel like they're always trying to work on them, and it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like there's much soul behind them. Like it's always imitating a game that we've already played before. Like there was a live service game that came out not too long ago. I don't see anybody playing it now, and it was like you had the characters and what was it? It was another hero shooter. Um, what was that game called? I forgot. But it was a game that I did present to you guys and see that and ask if you guys wanted to play it. I don't even know if the game is active now because I see no content on that game whatsoever.
Okay. I thought you
Um,
was gonna say Concord. It's like,
no, not that. Was it Conquer? No,
no, no, no. It definitely wasn't Concord.
no. Um, you guys can continue on. I'm gonna look up the game and then get back to my point. Um,
All right. So I mean, I don't have much more to add, but I mean, Wolf brought up good points. Like with the gotcha games, things tend to you'll have you'll have stuff like Fate Grand Order, which is really old in terms of gotcha, where they're very unfriendly in terms of the free currency they give you, but
Mm-hmm.
because people like Type Moon art style, they like the Fate Stay Night series, so they like the characters. People are drawn to that. And then you have the very friendly ones that they're giving out 10 pull tickets and tons of currency, and they don't last long because when your game is free to play, you have to have something you have to have something that generates money,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day you got to make money. That's why I kind of like if I have to engage with a live service video game, I kind of like the way they do games like Marvel Rivals. Marvel
Yes. Yes.
Rivals, all the characters are free, all the stages are free, you know, and all you really pay for are the skins. So if Iron Man has a badass skin and you want it, and it's $20, let's just say, then if it's worth it to you, you buy it, and Iron Man now has a cool skin. And if that's the only skin you ever buy, then the game is $20. It's a $20 game. So I'd rather that than fuck when I used to play Overwatch, and it was like, oh, you want that new Mercy skin? Roll that loot box, bitch. I It was horrible. But yeah, I mean that live services are hit or miss. It's sad that uh, companies like EA are using kind of iconic, well-known franchises like Dragon Age to try to chase that dream, and then they renege on that and they backtrack to try to make it a single player, but the damage is already done. It's sad to see it, and I think we're going to see it with a lot more franchises before long. Suicide Squad's another one. Look where that game is. That game is shut down. At least that game's going to have an offline mode, so if you're one of the 3 people who like it, you can continue to play it.
Marvel Avengers.
Yeah, Marvel Avengers, that one shut down. I don't think that one had an offline mode. So good luck with that one. Um, Concord is the one everybody memes on. That game is dead. Those are
Mm-hmm.
all live service games that just didn't give people what they want, didn't revolutionize in the gameplay or even provide substantial gameplay. And, they're in a graveyard. They're in a digital graveyard somewhere. So that's it for me. I mean, it's sad to see, but that's where we are currently in gaming.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys absolutely raised great points. And I'll add to that just to say that if you are someone who are into live service games, I'm not saying that all of them are entirely bad because there are some good ones. Again, I'm hearing nothing but good things about Marvel Rivals. When I was playing Dissidia Final Fantasy, it was a great game. I enjoyed it. Um, but I feel as though, like, if you're going to play and you're going to invest in it, it sounds like you have to be like almost deliberate. And what I mean by that is that you're gonna have to play as much as you like to get the meat and potatoes of everything that you want within that game, because eventually it's going to sunset, you know. So you can't be like me, who's like, oh, reverse is actually operational, let me go check it out, and then next thing you know, in 4 months it's already done. It's like, yeah, at this point it just doesn't make any sense, you know, besides maybe getting some gameplay of it to say that I have played it and to give like a brief review on it. You know, that's about it. But personally, to invest money on like the costumes, the skins, or whatever else they might be providing, I don't think within the course of like 4 months, I don't think that would be a good a good thing for me to do. Like I don't think that would be a smart thing for me to do. Um, but
No, probably not.
yeah, but yeah, guys, we have reached the time. Um, I want to take this time to thank my fellow panelists here. You know, Gunnar Eos and Wolf on this awesome
Yeah, no
conversation.
problem.
You know, we're always bringing up some interesting topics. Also, shout out to Kong as well, because he did speak on this particular article pertaining to Resident Evil, as well as Gunner. So they kind of like tag teamed on that. Um, but yeah, if you enjoyed the episode, guys, hit that subscribe button. We release episodes every Wednesday at 12 p.m. EST. And also, you know, we're looking for engagement. We're looking to hear from you guys. So let us know, like, if you do play any live service games, and what were your thoughts on them initially. What was a live service game that you played and it inevitably sunsetted? You know, if you do play a live service game, and what was your thoughts about the CEO stating that Dragon Age: The Veilguard would have been better as a live service? Like, did you even play Dragon Age: The Veilguard? And let us know what your thoughts, your overall initial thoughts about that game was. Did you like it, dislike it? What were the components that made it meh? What was the components that made it exceptional? Let us know. Absolutely. We want to hear from you guys. And then also, to add to that, check out our socials. Though the whole socials that we're a part of are right below the article, right below the showcasing of what we're displaying. And check out my Twitch stream. I stream every Monday and Friday from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. EST. So yeah, just check us out. Check us out. So with that being said, folks, I want to wish you guys and the panelists a wonderful night. Hope to see you next time. And last but certainly not least, if it ain't gaming, it ain't logical, folks. Peace.